Hello. So in the last video, I went over how it all started with how we were watching a fan film and we got inspired to make our own film. So that's essentially how it all started. Now I will be going into the actual writing of the movie. Let's go. So in the last episode, I went over how the plot changed very dramatically because the original plot that I initially started with is not the same plot that we see in the movie. And part of the reason why that was the case was one, the aging down of the character really shifted everything, honestly, because our main antagonist is now a young person who is flawed but can still be redeemed by the end. So that essentially really shook up everything. But another reason why it changed so much is that I've only truly thought of the original story in like really basic bullet points. So it was never fully written. So we had a lot of interpretation to do. And that's where my more I would say this is like when I started to implement how I write stories nowadays. Because back then I used to just think of a story. If I really liked the story, I would just write it down a bit here and there. But that is no longer the case. So, right here, what I have is this. This is how the story was written. This is before I scripted it. A book. So I didn't have a printer at the time, so I couldn't actually print my own storyboard. So I just relied on a book. And so this is how it was done, all in a book. And of course, my handwriting is not the best, so after I was really glad with one scene, I would just, type it out on my computer. And this is how this entire story came to be was because I storyboarded it, took into consideration a lot of feelings at the time. So I really got to reflect on a lot of things that went past me, honestly. It was actually quite the interesting thing to see. I started like fully writing in I would say I I would say February. February is when I wrote down the opening scene after much consideration. Which, funny enough, the original opening actually had a poem being read out by Krishna. But I'm just gonna point this out. I am very awful at poetry, so it was scrapped very early on. I tried, like I genuinely did try to produce a good poem, but I just could not for the life of me do so. So I decided to just put some music over it, and that was about it. And so, yeah, I should get into the naming. And I'm very awful at is naming. Naming the characters took way longer than it should have. I couldn't come up with a name for Krishna's character. So I just told Krishna, I was like, I don't know. You come up with a name. And he was like, I don't know. How about yokai? And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's the name of a monster, isn't it? I was like, yeah, it'll work. I was like, and I was like, you know what? Just don't put in too much thought into it, and it'll be just fine. And for the most part, I've never heard of anyone make any complaints about it. I'm sure there's a few people that found it odd, but I'm sure you could probably just write it off as a nickname. But Toru, or my character, he had a completely different name. So, as I said before, he was old, like really, really old. So he kind of had like a more older name. But the problem was none of my crewmates, none of my cast could pronounce his name. and even I wasn't the best at pronouncing it. So I decided to. So when I aged on the character, I decided to give him a cooler, hip name. And so I was like, man, what will I name him? How about Toru? Like no Toro. Though apparently I'm also pretty bad at pronouncing Toru. Uh, Most people think I'm saying it in the Japanese name Toru or Toru, but no, I'm supposed to be saying it as Toro. I'm just very off at pronouncing my R's, so it kind of gets lost in translation. But so that's how we came up with the name, and I just named Nunta's character Margot, and that was about it. I just called her Margot because there was an artist I really like, and her name was Margot. My light just died. So writing officially began in February, and scripting, scripting like 100% scripted was finished in January of 2024. So it took a very long time, and it was interesting because when we started filming, it wasn't 100% done, and you may wonder what could have possibly taken so long. And this is when we really started to dive deeper into some of the production problems that we faced. So what started as a way to kind of experiment with live action and my first indie film, it really all just went so south because I announced this film to my family, and for context, I used to do cybersecurity and IT, but the job market got incredibly difficult, so I decided to pursue art instead. And so it led with a lot of confusion, and a lot of irrational things were said towards me on that. And it ultimately led to such a really vitriolic environment where my art was critiqued. It was I was told that no one would give a damn about it, that it was all a fruitless effort, and that I gave up such an amazing career for something so idiotic. And I was told countless times, just quit, just quit, just quit. And writing, most really creating stories, has always been what I truly love doing the most. So to have such a level of negativity was was hurtful, and I can't go more in depth with it because it's really personal. But having that would just slow down the process so much. And every time I was just like, oh, what the hell is the point of it? But of course, I kept pushing. And this was before filming, because when filming started, it was awful. 1 month before filming, I had someone who I was very close to move away. And when I said I was very close to this person, I was really, really close. So when they moved away, it also got rid of someone who I used to rent to, who I could tell my feelings towards, because it only got worse as the movie got closer to being filmed. So I told them, and I told them how hurtful it was, and they told me that they would they would just comfort me. But when they were gone, I was truly left alone in that regard. So this person who I was very close to after they left, I just wanted to know what they felt towards me as I started to develop feelings for them. So I confessed to them, but they were not reciprocated, which I understand. I truly do. But what they did next devastated me even more. So this person who I was very close to honestly betrayed me in a really bad way. They made a close friend story about me. That's all I'll give you. But it was devastating to hear because this person I used to cuddle with and we kissed. And so to be betrayed by someone like that was incredibly hurtful. And I wish I could go more in depth with that one, but genuinely speaking, I just would wish to be free from that. Because at the end of the day, they did get all the attention out of me. But this is besides the point. Going back to writing. So, all this happened while filming and before filming. But before the story was fully complete. And you could imagine just the level of just heartbreak I dealt with because my family issues were very prevalent all the way through the movie production. But then my relationship issues were also very prevalent to the end of the movie. And so when I would try and try for hours just to write and write, but all I kept thinking was about everything, and it just kept passing on. And I did everything I could, but I was so isolated at one point in time. The only people I really interacted with was my cast, but we mainly hung out just so we could film. So I really didn't know what to do. But I did have one thing. The only thing I had left to write on my feelings was, well, this. Perhaps writing about myself didn't lead. Just, I never liked writing about myself. I've always felt like such an unlikable person that to write about myself would probably ruin the film. But at one point in time, it was all I could think of. And it's all I could really talk to at one point because there was just so much to deal with. And I just needed a place to vent out my frustration. So I did. And to this day, I'm still on the mixed side of it because, on one hand, that story that I enjoyed, or that early concept of a story that I thought had potential, was practically lost in the ether because of my personal issues. So everything that I once had planned for that story gone because of my personal issues. But what else could I have done? I didn't know what to do. All I knew was to write, and I needed to make a movie, and that's how I did it. That's how I did it. Wrote, and I no longer know. I don't know really, to be honest, if the film was better because of it, or worse because of it. Honestly, this is like the most I've ever talked about these issues. I typically obviously don't, but this all culminated into my writing just seeing such a drastic shift in everything, and it just led to the movie becoming something more personal in a way because I think the original story is very interesting in and of itself, and it's something that I would maybe want to revisit at one point. But at the same hand, this new story that was formed because of my feelings, it has some like it feels more sentimental. I don't like my film. I genuinely don't. I think it's pretty bad. But there's a sentimental value of it that I enjoy. And I'm not sure if I would have gotten that if I just stuck to the original story. And that's how the writing process became so messy, was because of my personal issues that I was suffering during that time period. And to be honest, I've only really scratched the surface of that part of my life. But to be honest, I do not wish to discuss it any further because it's very personal and it's something that I'm still processing. So I do not wish to discuss it further. Um, I do not wish for my I do not wish for some people's mistakes to become their only uh, thing that they are known for. Did they make a mistake in how they reacted? Yes. Did I make some mistakes in how I reacted? Of course. So in time, these feelings will fade away as I pursue my art. So thank you for watching. This one was a lot less fun than the last one, but I think it's pretty interesting. Once again, check out my art channel, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.